We are back on Cult Movies TV with cult personality supreme, writer, director, producer, actor, cameraman, Mr. Titus Moody. Titus, welcome to our show.
Thank you kindly. You guys look very professional.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's good to finally have you on the show.
Good. It's a pleasure to be here, yes.
And since we opened with the teaser question at the very beginning of the show about Pfink A Boo Boo, we better clear up that mystery before anything else. A film with at least two titles, a mid-1960s kind of a takeoff on Batman and Robin that you happen to appear in. What did happen with the title of that film? Can you explain that?
You know, in the first place, it was kind of a screwy movie. A lot of things went wrong, and I think they just misprinted it while they were doing the titles. And then it was probably cost too much money to redo it, or maybe nobody caught it. I mean, that can happen. I've seen it happen before, you know. In one movie, I was played one part, I was here, then they cut, and I was over here. I was like, I had a twin, you know. Nobody to this, well, and I had to point it out 20 years later to the company that you know, was a mistake. It played for 20 years. It was called Pit Stop.
Oh, directed by Jack Hill,
Yeah,
right?
Jack Hill, a good friend of mine, Jack. We did a lot of stuff together.
Yeah, he did a show with us a while
Did he?
back. Sure did. Yeah. And by the way, on Pfink A Boo Boo, that was what the title became, Pfink A Boo Boo, after being originally called Pfink A Boo Boo. That was directed by Ray Dennis Steckler, and you worked in a couple of pictures with him. In Pfink A Boo Boo, you play Boo Boo, who's the sidekick to Pfink. It's kind of a Batman and Robin takeoff, right? And you told us earlier, is it true that you had to design your own costume for that?
Oh, that's true. I designed my own costume because I always kind of like doing stuff like that, and I wanted to make an unusual costume, and it probably wouldn't have got done if I let it up to, you know, Ray Steckler or the other people. On the red underwear, it was really red underwear with pants on. There was a B, and the B was supposed to stand for bobbin.
Oh.
It was a takeoff on, you know, what do you call it?
Batman and Robin.
Batman and Robin, and I called myself Bobbin, but then it got changed to Boo Boo, which made less sense to me. But I didn't care. But I liked the little gimmick I put in the lights and the horns, and the light in the tail would light up. That was
your idea?
Thing I did.
Wow.
I saw a clip of the movie the other day, and that actually looked pretty good. You know, the lights flashing on and off.
It looked pretty funny. What happened to the suit, by the way? Do you still have that?
No, you know, I couldn't find the suit. One day I was looking for it, and I couldn't find it, so I said, oh well, because the suit was getting wore out. Because I wore it to a lot of Halloween parties. It was getting wore out, so a couple of times, well, one time I was walking down the street, and a fan came up to me, and he says, I know you played the part Boo Boo. And he says, I saw you the other day in a supermarket signing autographs, and I got your autograph. I said, you did? I thought, well, maybe the guy's a little nuts or something. I wasn't at a supermarket. You know what Ray Steckler did? He took the costume and he put it on a person about my size. I think it was a little loose on the person. And the person was signing autographs. You know, it really didn't make any difference to me. I didn't feel like going on supermarket appearances.
Oh, that's good. You're not originally from Hollywood, are you?
I'm from Chicago.
What made you come out to Hollywood, and when did you come out here?
Basically the weather.
Oh yeah, of course.
I came out here, I believe I was about 17 years old, so I don't know. I can't calculate when that was. Probably in the late 50s.
You pretty much immediately started as an actor, right? You started with smaller parts and kind of worked your way up a little bit. Did TV and film?
Yeah, I did a lot of TV. You know, I did some feature movies with movie stars, but I didn't do big parts. And
is it true you played a beatnik in a couple of your early
I played
pictures?
a lot of beatniks because I grew up a beard, and it was a real nice bushy red beard. And that did get me a lot of beatnik parts. But the movie Visit to a Small Planet, that was a fake beard.
That was with Jerry Lewis, right?
And that beard really itched. Oh.
How was Jerry Lewis to you?
Jerry Lewis was really nice to work with. Actors. He's a little hard on the directors, but he basically directed the movie.
Oh, is that true? Oh.
Yeah, he was. He always had a director there, but he was the one, you know, calling the shots, like most stars do.
Sure. Did a couple of TV shows like
Uh-huh.
Twilight Zone and Wyatt Earp. You got any stories you want to tell about either one of
Yeah,
those?
probably about Twilight Zone. I got a 3-day part on Twilight Zone. It was called A Hunt. It's where this fellow goes out with his coon dog, and his coon dog grounds, and then he drowns, and he was walking away, and he came up to a gate, and he was going to go into hell. And he couldn't find his dog, so he walked away. But my part was just digging the graves with another person. His name was Orville Sherman. And I heard the day before they were going to cut my scene, because my scene was rolling a cigarette. So what I did was I didn't want the scene cut, you know. So what I did was the next day I came back on the set, and the director came over to me and he said, "Your scene's been cut because we have a cigarette sponsor. And the cigarette sponsor doesn't want you rolling a cigarette." So I said to the director, I said, well, look, we could change it to, like, you know, peeling an apple, because I was a hillbilly. They do
Sure.
peeling apples. And he said, that's a very, very good idea, but we don't have time to send back for props for an apple or a knife. So I had the stuff right there, and he said, well, great, we'll shoot. I said, you need the running time. He said, yeah, you're right. And that's where I met Rod Serling. Because right away he came on the set, and he congratulated me for putting a minute and a half back in the show.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
How about, also I think around 1964, according to my notes, that you did a movie with Nick Adams called The Young Lovers.
Yes.
You got anything you can tell us about?
Sam Golan Jr.
Yeah.
movie. And when I first went in for the interview, Lynn Stallmaster, who was a very well-known casting director, took me in to meet Golan. And Golan said, "Do you play a guitar?" And I said, "No, I don't." He said, "Well, you got to play a guitar in this, movie. We got to have a guitar player." And evidently, Sam Golan Jr. didn't read his script, because the guy didn't have to play a guitar. And so I still got the part, and all I had to do was walk in carrying a guitar. And what happened was, the assistant director is supposed to be reading the script. He's waiting for the cue. And then he shoves you, and you go walking into your dialogue. They shoved me too soon, and Nick Adams, I cut all his lines. And Nick Adams was very, very clever, very good actor. And what he did was he stopped and looked at me, and then he continued doing his lines. So then he turned to me and says, "Go have your hootenanny now." And so actually Nick Adams, well, it wasn't my fault. The assistant director shoved me,
You worked in a couple of other pictures. Besides Rat Fink A Boo Boo, you were in The Thrill Killers for Ray Dennis Steckler, and that had Liz Renee in it as well, am I right?
I played 3 parts in that. And that was a movie that had a very famous chase scene. I was on a motorcycle. I was a motorcycle cop, and I was chasing a horse through a wooded area. And that got a lot of publicity. I wrote up the press releases myself. And
Wow.
Is that when you met?
I used to have a lot of fun writing press releases.
Is that when you met Liz Renee, by the
Who
way?
was on
You're
pretty
good
much.
friends with
Yeah, I
her.
was on Thrill Killers, and we became very close friends.
You're still friends with her, right?
Yeah,
You
we still
know?
see each
Sure.
other. I was just up there doing an interview on her.
With
She's-
her?
Huh?
In Vegas?
Well, yeah, I did it for, well, you remember the interview. It was a few years ago, I think now.
Oh, I'll be darned. What else about your productions? You've gotten in and done productions of several pictures.
Yeah, well, I got into producing because there's so much incompetent people trying to produce and direct, and I was always trying to check out the camera people, and I'd make so many mistakes after a while. I said, why should I, be checking these people out when I can do it myself? So that's how I became a cameraman. And they really did make a lot of mistakes, And the union camera people are the worst.
Oh, yeah. That's funny. One of the first things you did a documentary called Outlaw Motorcycles,
Yeah.
right? And that was kind of the first, in a way, the first
Yeah.
of a trend.
Uh-huh.
Other people like Roger Corman and Peter Fonda and others like that, Herschel Gordon Lewis, they did a lot of pictures. That became a really popular genre, right?
Right, I started the trend for all that.
Yeah.
Mine was a documentary. It still rents really well and sells well.
That's great. And that's called Outlaw Motorcycle?
Yes,
Around
what
that?
happened with that was I I knew all the motorcycle people, so I just shot some footage and all that.
Some real-life footage of the actual...
Pieced it together, but what happened was I had a reputation for getting motorcycle people, so I got a lot of parts because I knew the motorcycle gangs, and then I'd bring them in on the set, you know, and I could control them.
Wow, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I guess we're probably gonna wrap up this first segment here. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about the Outlaw Motorcycle, and we're going to go into which is probably your most famous film, The Last American Hobo, right?
Yeah, it is.
You won a couple of awards on that, and yeah, it's been a very acclaimed movie. And when we come back, we'll show a clip from that, and we'll talk about it.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, I guess we'll be right back. We're going to have a little commentary from our resident writer, Brad Lineweaver, and we'll be right back with Titus Moody.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Brad Lineweaver, and I'm here to talk about my work on the Doom novels based on the video game of the same name. In my right hand, I have the American edition of Doom, the first novel, Knee Deep in the Dead. In my left hand, the Russian edition. It is very weird seeing your name in the Cyrillic alphabet. There were 4 Doom novels, Knee Deep in the Dead, Hell on Earth, Infernal Sky, and Endgame. I wrote them with my co-author, Dafydd Eb Hugh. And we had a very strange experience when, thanks to the Columbine massacre, the Doom novels got back into public attention because the kids at Columbine who did the killings happened to be fans of the Doom video game, and in their possession, all Doom-related items were found, including our novels. I've never been able to find out if the novels had even been read by the kids, if the glue was broken, or they'd even bothered to read the books, because if they had, they would have noticed that our novels were about patriotic, heroic people who are willing to risk their lives to save their fellow human beings from monsters. And of course, the kids at Columbine, the 2 killers, were the monsters. I get fan letters from teenage boys constantly who like the Doom novels and see the patriotic aspect of them, considering that our heroes are American Marines. And the fact is that a number of kids that write to me since the Columbine massacre are terribly offended by what happened and the way the mass media tried to make out Doom to be the cause of the tragedy. On the contrary, if more teenagers believed in the heroic values that popular entertainment often teaches, we would never have anything like the Columbine massacre. And we did have kids at Columbine who acted heroically, who risked their lives to save their classmates. And I don't think the news media gave us enough attention on those kids. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to make an announcement to the kids. Well, anyhow, you guys remember when we went through the Watts riot area? And we saw all the trouble there? Earl Finn of the Road Region suggested that we each donate a can of food to the kids of the riot area. And down at the Yankee Poodle, you know, where we hang out on weekends, there'll be a basket there with a sign above it. And we're all supposed to drop in a can of food, and later on it'll be taken down there to them.
Yeah, man, I go for that.
Yeah, well, I go for it too.
Yeah, man, that's good.
Welcome back to Cult Movies TV with our special guest, Titus Moody. And we just took a look at Titus's motion picture, Outlaw Motorcycles, which was made around 1965, and that had to be a genuine, authentic documentary about motorcycle life.
Yeah, yes it was. The reason it was an authentic documentary is I didn't have any money to pay the people, but I thought it was an interesting subject matter, and they had some really nice looking historical bikes there. And I knew a lot about bikes. As a matter of fact, I built a really nice chrome motorcycle. It was a pride of Hollywood at one time. And I believe the clip you showed was about the food drive. They're going to go down and donate all the food at the Yankee Poodle.
Right.
I think that was their idea.
And that was you in the
Oh,
clip,
I think,
right?
yes, yes, yes. I was the Alfred Hitchcock cameo. And I think what happened was you're going to have this big drive, and I think I talked the owner, who I knew his cousin or something, into doing a little publicity for his Yankee Poodle, And I think there was a lot of free beer given out. And bikers to entice them to come in there, and I'd take a shot of the sign. But it was a very popular movie, and still is. I never liked it.
You didn't like your own film?
No.
How come?
Well, I saw all the mistakes. You know, when you do something, you see more mistakes than the audience. And I guess some of the sound was out of sync, and you know, but people don't care, you know, sometimes.
'Cause it's kind of a historical document now. It's kind of a historical document now. At
the
this
end of
time.
the outlaw era, it just faded out. Hell's Angels are still around now, but you don't hear too much about them.
Not anymore. What made you, your next picture you went on to, Last American Hobo, what got you interested in that subject matter?
Another thing, I thought it was a interesting part of history that came and went, and nobody really documented it in the way I did. I tried to make it it was kind of a fun movie to watch, and it plays. I get a lot of requests to play it. I put on parking lot entertainment. I rent a big drive-in screen, and I project it in parking lots. You know, I bring pieces of cardboard for the people to sit on. It's
pretty interesting.
Hmm?
Should we look at a clip of it, and then maybe you can talk about it a little bit? Okay. Why don't Kevin, Kathy, or we could run a clip, and then we'll talk a little bit about it.
Outlaw Motorcycles.
But this will be Last American Hobo.
I'll tell you, I have made 1,000,000 miles, strong miles. I've been all over the country. I rode in boxcars when it was cold, and I'd freeze to death. And I've been in there when it was so hot, I couldn't move. I'd try to get me a drink of water, bottled water, anything to drink.
It ain't no fun either when the bulls run you out of town and you're hiding waiting to catch a drag. Yeah, sometimes those old steam locos really came barreling down those rails. There was 5 of us once when this engine came puffing, hell-bent down the tracks. We could see it was coming too fast. Suddenly, the stiff next to me jumped up, started for his run. He was spooked. Just wanted to catch that drag. He lunged out and grabbed the back of the car, and it threw him down and around right between the cars. You could tell he was practically dead. I don't feel cold anymore.
Okay, we're back. That was a clip from Last American Hobo. Good clip. By the way, how long did it take you to shoot that picture?
The picture was made over a period of 4 years. The main problem was money, getting film, and it wasn't consecutive days, but it did take a long time to do it, just mainly because of financing. I had to wait long periods of waiting.
Where'd you meet the people that you used in the picture? Just around? How'd
Just
you
searched him out, just drove around. I saw a character. I tried to promote him to be in a movie if he looked like a good hobo type. Then, of course, I went back to Britt, Iowa, the hobo capital, and shot some of the kings, the old kings, Pennsylvania Kid, and Hard Rock Kid.
Wow. Where'd the movie premiere, by the way?
At Britt, Iowa, in a cheap theater back in Britt, Iowa.
And that's where the Hobo Festival is?
Yeah, it's supposed to be the biggest Midwestern event, the Hobo Convention. A lot of people show up for it. And they actually made a legend out of me back in the Midwest.
Wow. That picture's still popular. That's out on video right now, isn't it?
Out on video, yeah.
It's a very popular rental, even.
Yeah, rents are very good out at in the valley at, what is his name, Brent's store?
All over, probably.
Yeah, Mondo Video in Hollywood.
Yeah. But also, I just got a question. I guess we'll go off, before we go, we're getting near the end of our show, but I wanted to mention your dog, Chi-Chi. It's a great little Chihuahua you had for 26 years. And you even used during a movie, right? It was Chi-Chi's Night Out was called. Yes. It was a little bit of a strip show with the dog emceeing the acts. Got anything to say about Chi-Chi?
Yeah, well, she was a great dog. I inherited the dog from a girl, and she was just an unusual dog. I found out she was from the Barlin and Bailey circus dogs. She's related. And she, I guess what you'd call, she was a line bred because she had all those things bred into her tricks. She did a Mexican dance, and she would jump through hoops. And I didn't have to train her or nothing, but she would stay, and she would heel and all that stuff. And I used to work for a lot of Japanese companies. I made a lot of films for Japanese companies, and they insisted on taking her every place. And I said, no, the dog can stay, or she can stay in the truck or whatever, but Chi-Chi had to go in the restaurants and eat, or they wouldn't go in and eat. And so the the restaurant owners would bring a box out, and they said, well, the dog has to sit in a box. And the dog had to sit right at the table with the Japanese crew and myself. And in some cases, she would, if we were shooting outside, and she would sit on the equipment, guard the equipment.
Mm-hmm.
So she was really popular. She did a lot of unusual things.
And they say you're not supposed to feed dogs the same kind of food people would eat, but that dog ate scrambled eggs and toast and ham and everything.
Spaghetti was one of her favorites. And
because you took her to these restaurants.
Yeah. And she, one time I was at the Salvation Army thrift store, and I put her down on the floor, and I didn't care about, animals being there and that. So she was really, kind of a small dog. She snuck way around the counter, and the sales lady had to wait on somebody. And I saw her back there. I said, oh, my God. And she snuck up and grabbed a piece of meat out of the lady's sandwich. And I said, come here. And I grabbed the dog, put it under my jacket real quick. And the lady, to this day, probably doesn't know what happened to that meat, That was her lunch. And so Chi-Chi had a better lunch that day than she did.
And the dog lived to be 26 years old?
Yes, and she went through 5 cancer operations. She's bitten half by a Doberman. And she made it through you could see the fang mark going right through, and
wow.
We gave her up, the veterinarian did, but then she came back and came out of the hospital.
Yeah.
She was really fun to have around. She worked in a lot of movies, a heck of a lot of movies.
Oh,
And she used to like to work with the models, and if the models weren't really doing something right, or the actors, she would growl at them.
Wow.
And one day the girl she had a clown thing on her neck, and she's sitting there in front of a bunch of actors, and this girl's doing a juggling act.
Uh-huh.
And Chi-Chi has her little cut. The girl dropped one of the balls, and it bounced right on her head, and she was through for today. She didn't come back.
With that, we have to wrap it up.
Good.
It looks like we're out of time. We'll be back after Marta's Movie Minute. Thank you. Thanks, Titus.
Thank you kindly, you guys. You're great.